As the Trump administration continues to escalate immigration enforcement operations around the country, we're joined now by Tricia McLaughlin. She's the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. Tricia, welcome to the NewsHour. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
So I just want to ask you first about some reports about Secretary Noem being hospitalized yesterday after suffering an allergic reaction. What can you tell us today about how she's doing?
She's doing well, Amna. Thank you for asking. She was discharged from the hospital last night, and she's doing well, recovering. We just brought her to the hospital out of an abundance of caution.
Thank you for that update. I do want to turn now to what we've seen in a lot of headlines, what I know is a priority for this president and seeing through his pledge of mass deportations. We saw the president on Thursday say that business leaders from agriculture and hotel and leisure had expressed worries to him that your immigration policy was, quote, taking very good longtime workers away from them, impacting their businesses. In the days since, we've seen reports, of course, that ICE agents have continued to carry out raids on some of those businesses and agriculture and hotels and restaurants. Can you just clarify what the policy is? Despite the president's concerns that he raised, are those raids on those businesses still being carried out?
Absolutely, Amna. And just to clarify this, our number one concern is violent criminals. And part of the ways that we find these violent criminals is through these worksite enforcement actions. That very much is the cornerstone of our operations. Actually, most recently in Los Angeles, we had an operation where we did locate multiple drug traffickers. We're finding that these worksite enforcements oftentimes find human traffickers, labor traffickers, or otherwise exploiting these migrants for cheap labor, unsafe working conditions. So those are not on pause. Those will continue.
So we do know that undocumented workers make up somewhere between 4 and 5% of our entire nation's workforce. If these business leaders express concern about their businesses being impacted, are you saying there will not be a change to that policy?
I'm saying that in the last 100 days under this administration, 75% of those immigrants that we've arrested, those illegal immigrants that we've arrested, have had prior criminal convictions. So these are not necessarily innocent individuals, that they not only are in this country illegally, but they also have crimes that they've committed.
I want to ask you about that number more deeply in a moment, but just to clarify, no change
Absolutely.
to that policy coming, correct?
No, we will continue worksite enforcement operations.
Okay, there was this reported target of 3,000 arrests a day that we'd seen. Can you tell me how often that target has been hit by ICE agents?
And our ICE enforcement officers, they're consistently meeting their numbers. We want to get those numbers up, though, especially for violent criminals. But I think more than that, we have to look at the culture that has been for the last 4 years. Our ICE enforcement officers have been demonized. They're facing a 413% increase in assaults against them. But for the last 4 years, they were told, don't do your job, don't make these arrests. So we've had to have some leadership changes. We've had to really reinvigorate this organization so they're empowered to do their jobs and make these arrests.
Have they been able to hit that 3,000 target on any day so far?
Well, they're absolutely working toward it. We're around 260,000 arrests since the Trump administration started.
So 260,000 arrests. I want to ask you more about that because there was a recent analysis that The Guardian did that found that among the surge of immigrant arrests that we have seen under this Trump administration, the biggest increase from January to June was actually among people who had no charges or convictions at all, an 807% increase. There were absolutely people who had criminal records and criminal convictions among those arrested, but the vast majority, the analysis shows, did not. Is that accurate based on what you've seen?
That's not accurate. I would not rely on The Guardian for any sort of analysis here. This is the federal government. The Department of Homeland Security is telling the American people that 75% of those illegal aliens who have been arrested have prior convictions. The Guardian is by no means a reliable analysis for this kind of data.
You're saying 75% of over the 260,000 people you've arrested were convicted in a court for a violent crime. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Can I just add, there's such a gap between the numbers that you're sharing right now and what we've seen in previous reports. There was another analysis based on internal data that CNN ran and published on June 16th that found that less than 10% of the about 190,000 or so people who've been booked into ICE custody had been convicted of those serious violent crimes, as you mentioned. Why is there such a huge gap between what reporters and journalists are reporting based on the data they see and what you're saying now?
I don't know where CNN or the Guardian are getting their data, but I wouldn't say that those are exactly nonpartisan outlets. I don't really rely on them for facts or analysis. I do rely on the Department of Homeland Security and our career civil servants who are giving us this data.
I do want to ask you about another trend we've seen, which is the ramping up of arrests in immigration hearings or in federal courthouses. There was a case in San Diego last week of a man named Syed Nasser. He worked with U.S. troops in Afghanistan. He was arrested by ICE as he left his asylum hearing at a courthouse. His lawyer says that he was legally paroled into the U.S. He had no criminal record in the U.S. or in Afghanistan. And his life is surely going to be at risk if he's deported back to that country. How is the U.S. safer without him here?
Yeah, no, we actually looked into this case, and actually we're working with the Pentagon and found that there was actually no verifiable information or data that he did work with the U.S. government while he was in Afghanistan. But I think, fortunately, our message to those who are in this country illegally or have their temporary protected status that has ended is that the U.S. taxpayer so generously is offering these individuals $1,000 and a free flight home. They preserve the option then to return to this country the legal right way. And if not, we will have to arrest them and deport them.
This is someone that his lawyer said was legally paroled into the U.S., though. He did legally enter. He was following the legal process by showing up for this asylum hearing. So why should he be deported?
So there are a number of programs that the Biden administration administered, really allowed people unvetted into this country. We've given people the proper amount of time to leave this country or apply for asylum. That's still on the table. If this individual wants to apply for asylum and he has a legitimate fear, that's something we'll absolutely consider.
Patricia, this is someone who did apply for asylum. His case is already being heard. Why not allow it to go through the court system before arresting and deporting?
We are allowing it to go through the court system, Amna.
He's already been taken into ICE detention and put into expedited removal. His case is not
while he's awaiting his asylum hearing. That's correct.
So you're saying his case will be fully heard. He won't be
Yes,
deported until his
Anna.
asylum hearing is done.
His case will be heard.
Among the ramp up of people we've seen arrested at some of the immigration hearings, we've heard concern from folks who say, look, these are people going through the legal process. They are following the rules. Is the message that you're sending to them now, don't show up at the courthouse, don't follow the rules and follow the legal process because you might be arrested anyway?
Of course not. But Amna, we've spent about 10 minutes right now defending those who are here in this country illegally, but I haven't heard a single time you talk about a victim of MS-13, of Tren de Aragua, of the 100,000 individuals in this country who die every single year of fentanyl. So I do think something that's going on with PBS, the public broadcasting stations in this country, including cable news as well, is that there's a major focus on those who are here illegally in this country and not the victims. And there's a reason why the American people voted in a landslide on November 5th, 2024 for mass deportations. That's what Donald Trump as a candidate promise, and that's what we're going to deliver in this administration.
Trisha, we've covered, I should point out, a number of those stories and will continue to do so. I'm asking you about some of the changes in policies and enforcement actions that we've seen under this administration. It's not a defense of anyone. It's questions based on what we've seen in the headlines. So I guess the question again is, in terms of these enforcement actions we've seen at immigration hearings, regardless of where people are in that legal process, you're saying if they are here without legal status, they could be arrested and deported. Is that right?
They could be arrested and deported, especially if you've been here less than 2 years. You are eligible for expedited removal. We encourage you to go to your immigration hearing, or else you will absolutely get a final deportation order, and you will be arrested and deported.
Trisha, we thank you so much for making the time, being willing to come on and engage and take the questions. That is Trisha McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. Thank you again.
Amna, thank you for having me.
After the interview, we asked DHS for information backing up the claim that 75% of the 260,000 people arrested were convicted of a violent crime. They provided an April press release claiming 75% had convictions or pending charges. They said that number has remained consistent throughout the Trump administration.